Earlier this year, the man, the myth, the legend, Frankie Edgar announced that he would step into the octagon one last time at Madison Square Garden on the UFC 281 card. That time has finally come. Edgar's legendary ended after a grueling bout against Chris Gutierrez. Join us for today's video as we explain how everything went down and some key takeaways from UFC 281. First up, a tragic end for a legend. Feel-good retirements. In MMA? Never heard of it. Let's just get one thing out of the way. Nobody, and we mean absolutely nobody, wanted this outcome. It's probably the saddest way a legend can go out. But it happened, and honestly, there's no point in being sad. If it's good enough for Frankie, it's good enough for us. The outcome was pretty much what everyone expected but was unwilling to accept. The 41-year-old legend had more than a slight disadvantage heading into the fight against Gutierrez, who's a decade younger than him. And that's why many fans were skeptical ahead of the fight. Many felt the promotion set Edgar up for failure in his retirement match, but you see, the only way the UFC could have given the Jersey kid a hero's farewell was if they pitted him against a young prospect like Adrian Yanez, which would have been pretty cruel but understandable. Or they could have booked Edgar against a super low-level bantamweight, of which there aren't many these days. But as we all know, instead of doing that, the UFC split the difference and booked Edgar to face Gutierrez, a tough, talented, and not to mention much larger modern 135-pounder. El Guapo was neither a young prodigy nor an easy out, but that still didn't stop him from knocking Edgar out with a deadly knee right in front of his family and a devastating arena to end his career. Sure, UFC fans have seen worse, but everything about this felt like a missed opportunity. Next up, let's talk about the fight. Edgar stepped into the octagon looking in pretty good shape, and we're not going to lie, his physical conditioning did give us a lot of. But unfortunately, all that was shattered once the bell rang. Gutierrez got off to a good start, landing strikes from all angles and using his footwork to keep Edgar at bay. While Edgar was able to soak up Gutierrez's first flurry of strikes, he was struggling. The legend knew he needed to change where the fight was taking place, but that ended up backfiring. Fans cheered loudly for the New Jersey native as he tried to shoot for a takedown but got caught flush with a flying knee. And just like that, Edgar's chin, which was once renowned for its ability to absorb blow after blow, couldn't withstand Gutierrez's power. The knee sent Edgar stumbling down to the mat, resulting in his third consecutive KO loss. Luckily, Edgar was able to recover. He even thanked the fans for their support in a post-fight interview and declared his love for the sport before talking about his disappointment with how the fight went. Moving on, could Edgar still come back? Plus, what's next for Gutierrez? Edgar previously stated that the only thing that could lure him back into competition after retirement would be an exhibition boxing match with Manny Pacquiao or someone of a similar pedigree. But if you ask us, after yet another crushing defeat, he is unlikely to return to combat sports in the near future, especially since he wants to spend more time with his family. As for the man who retired him, Gutierrez is eager to take Edgar's place in the rankings at number 12, or possibly even higher, given his long unbeaten streak. Finally, it's time to take a trip down memory lane. Despite Edgar's devastating loss, we believe we have no reason to slump around. You know, it's like one "don't be sad, it's over, be happy that it happened" kind of moment. Frankie Edgar's competitive career began as a Toms River East High School wrestler. He even qualified for the New Jersey State Championship tournament 3 times, finishing second as a junior and 5th as a senior. With only a few weeks of MMA training, the Answer made his MMA debut against Eric Uresk on July 10, 2005 in the Underground Combat League, which he won through TKO. Edgar then went on a winning streak with a 6-0 record before making his promotional debut at UFC 67 against Tyson Griffin, which he won by unanimous decision. Frankie then challenged BJ Penn for the UFC Lightweight Championship after racking up a 6-1 record in the UFC. Both fighters engaged in a back-and-forth battle, which ended with Edgar being crowned the UFC Lightweight Champion. Throughout his career, Edgar would win Fight of the Night 8 times, Knockout of the Night 1 time, and Performance of the Night twice. It will be a long time until we see another one like him. Coming up, here are 5 key lessons we learned from UFC 281. First, Pereira is destined for greatness. In only his 8th pro MMA fight and 4th appearance in the octagon, Pereira's performance against one of the greatest pound-for-pound fighters in history was nothing short of amazing. Add to that the fact that he is the only fighter able to stop Adesanya, and you'll start to see why so many people say he's a legend in the making. Sure, Pereira was already a kickbox champion in kickboxing, but his ability to stay in the game and not buckle under the pressure against Adesanya despite such an imbalance in the MMA experience was insane. Pereira was nearly knocked off his feet in the final seconds of round 1, and probably would have been if there had been more time on the clock. But despite this, Pereira never stopped pushing Adesanya, and after spending most of round 3 on his back, recovered quickly towards the end. He waited until Adesanya was exhausted and frustrated, then let it loose with only 2 minutes on the clock. Pereira is now 3-0 against Adesanya in two sports, and he's undoubtedly on his way to becoming one of the biggest names in MMA. Moving on, Dustin Poirier and Michael Chandler are just at another level. As far as pre-fight predictions go, we all knew this lightweight collision between two beloved heroes would be the night's fight, but not even the greatest psychic could have predicted just how good this fight would be. As we're telling you, it was on a completely different level. Poirier proved that even at 32, nothing could slow him down. He returned after being destroyed by Chandler in round 1, but Mike rallied in round 2 to regain control with his wrestling. The fight was up for grabs until the final round, with both fighters covered in sweat and blood until Poirier finally locked Chandler in a submission hold. All in all, this was about as tense and insane as a fight can get. Poirier won, but even in defeat, Chandler proved to everyone why he's called the most exciting risk-taker of the modern era. Coming up, Zhang Weili has a bright future. Zhang became a two-time champ after defeating Esparza by way of submission. She took control of the fight with her wrestling skills. Zhang has grown significantly since losing the 2021 title to Rose Namajunas and has worked incredibly hard to correct as many of her flaws as possible. After this bout, she might be on her way to becoming one of the most well-rounded fighters this division has ever seen. Also, Adesanya shouldn't have taken so many chances. It looked like Adesanya was one takedown away from securing the 6th defense of his title. In the closing moments, he was backed into the fence, within punching distance of Pereira, but he ended up fumbling the bag. Given that there were a lot of questions about Pereira's lack of MMA experience and whether he had the stamina to go 5 rounds, Adesanya made a critical miscalculation at an inopportune time. This fight was another reminder of just how unpredictable this sport is, because even with Pereira's striking power, no one thought he could pull off something like this against a star like Adesanya. Adesanya got too caught up in trying to compensate for his 2 kickboxing losses to Pereira that he lost track of the challenge at hand, and his unnecessary risks cost him everything. Finally, the MSG magic is back. Over the past 6 years, the UFC's annual visit to Manhattan has produced countless memorable moments. With the exception of the BMF title fight between Jorge Masvidal and Nate Diaz at UFC 244, the majority of those iconic moments occurred during the first 2 years of the event. At UFC 205, Conor McGregor closed the show, becoming the first to hold 2 titles simultaneously, and the following year at UFC 217, 3 titles changed hands on the same night. But since then, we couldn't help but feel the hype had left the garden. Well, that same magic was back in MSG this weekend. The tension, the intrigue, plus the unpredictability, it was all there. The feeling was as intoxicating as it was contagious, and that, in our opinion, makes UFC 281 the promotion's best MSG card to date. That's a wrap for this video. Did you enjoy UFC 281 as much as us? Let us know in the comments below. Make sure to give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel for more videos like this. We'll see you at the next one.